Hello everyone and welcome back to the X-Ring. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, so if you want to know more about these flow-through suppressors, definitely stick around for this one. Yep. All right, so this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. It is going to be a little bit long, but what we're going to be testing are a couple of different flow-through suppressors. First up is the Hux Works. This is the Flow, the 556K. Guys, you know, this was kind of like one of the first flow-through suppressors or reduced blowback systems. And then, of course, you had Surefire come out with the RC3. You guys were familiar with this. I spent quite a bit of time with this suppressor. Works really well. And then also the Cobalt Kinetics. These are the Scramblers. And you might ask why I have two of them, and it's because one is Inconel and one is titanium. These are all 3D printed cans. Everyone here uses the additive manufacturing. You know, most of them are going to be Inconel with no barrel length restrictions or anything else, but I have both of them to test. Now, the difference between these two is basically going to be the weight. We'll get into that in just a minute. And then, of course, the next one is going to be the B&T. Now, this one hasn't been released in this color yet. This is the SRBS-556 by B&T. And so we're going to talk about all these. Before we get into the actual shooting, though, I want to do a couple of caveats here, okay? Now, I'm not your mom, not your dad, but I am going to be talking to you a little bit about hearing protection. And guys, I can tell you that any of these cans, any of the cans on the market, when you throw it on an AR platform, you are doing hearing damage, okay? Multiple exposures, there's no can on the market that's really gonna make it where it's safe enough. Even if you throw, you know, a 338 Lapua, you know, like one of these big, huge cans on here, it's really not going to make it quiet enough to where you're not sustaining hearing damage. I am going to be using a Larson Davis. This is an LXT1. This is actually a class 1 sound metering device. I actually have a computer and all that other stuff. I'm not even going to hook that up because this is only going to be used as reference. Because a lot of you guys might know that this actual unit here, even though new, these were about $8,000, this doesn't conform to the mill standard because of the sample rate. And what that means is like a pulse meter, or like some of these very sophisticated rooms that have the pulse meters in there, they can actually sample at about 4 times of what this can sample. So there is a chance, a very small chance, of missing that peak max in decibels. Now, if you don't understand decibels, decibels are basically pressure. You know, sound is a pressure wave. And so these are A-weighted scales. If you don't know, you don't know, and I'm not going to pretend I know everything because I absolutely don't. It was just through my training from going through the certification on this to be able to use it properly. But this is something that they will use in occupational places to measure it for, you know, OSHA and all the different levels. But it is a lab-grade sound metering device. What you need to understand about sound metering or measuring decibels is it is not linear. I've said this before, and it's not, you know, decibels aren't the only thing that work on a logarithmic rather than linear scale. You know, math as we know it, if you take, you know, 10 samples of something and you divide by 10, that's going to give you an average. It doesn't work that way with sound. A perfect example would be something like the Richter scale for measuring earthquakes. If you go up 1 point, let's say it measured 2.0 on the Richter scale, when you go to a 3.0, well, what does that mean? Does that mean the earth just shook a little bit more? Well, yes, but it means that it's 10 times the power or the magnitude that the 2 was. So 2.0 to 3.0 is 10 times the power, not just 1 on that scale. The same way works for sound metering. Anytime you increase by 3 decibels, the power or the energy, that pressure, is doubled. Okay, so it is definitely not linear, it is definitely logarithmic. So the difference between 70 and 74 decibels is not that great, right? You're talking about 4 decibels. But that's lower on the curve. The difference between, let's say, 150 and 154 is, guys, the math on it would be incredible on how much more powerful that is over that 70 decibel rating. And you know, one of the best examples you'll ever read, even when I went through my training, is you got to think of exposure or doses of sound as in like a sunburn, okay? So depending on where you are on the earth, the rays might actually be stronger, okay, in certain parts of the earth, certain parts of the world. But either way, I'm getting exposure right now on my skin. Well, the longer that I stay out here, the more severe the exposure is to the radiation, and I could get burnt, okay? But it's all cumulative. If I stay out here for 5 days and never move, I'm probably going to be burnt on top of my arms. I'm going to be burnt on my right ear, depending on where the sun's at. Or how many times have you guys ridden in a car with your left arm up while you're steering, and then your left arm has more of a tan than your right arm? It's the amount of exposure and the intensity, okay? So that's the way sound is going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it on 2 different platforms. The first platform is going to be a 10.3 inch Daniel Defense. This is a TrueMark 18. We'll check it with that, but we're going to do that at the end. What we'll do first is we'll do it. This is a Geisley Super Duty. This is a machine gun as well, but this is a 16 inch gun. And so that sound pressure is going to be different in a 10.3 as opposed to, let's say, the 16 inch, okay? So it should be a little bit quieter, but the raw sound of actually firing it unsuppressed should be about the same. I don't know, we'll measure it and we'll see what happens. But with any of these suppressors, you're only going to get a reduction of about 30 something dBs. Well, if it starts off at 160 and you knock off 30, you're still going to be at 130 dBs. And guys, you're going to be suffering hearing damage if you listen to anything that loud. It depends on the duration as well, but one single exposure at like 136 to 140 is damaging your hearing. Now, whether or not that bothers you, or you're one of those guys like I was that grew up shooting 22s unsuppressed all day long, we actually damaged our hearing. Now, I don't know if you know, but I'm actually pretty loud in person, and the reason is I'm about half deaf in my left ear. It's not that bad, but there are certain things, syllables, you know, S's, things like that in speech that it's difficult for me to hear, and that's just through years of exposure. Now, you know, my dad was in the military, he was in the Army, and, you know, he's to the point now where, of course, he's got to have hearing aids and everything else, and all that was from the exposure back when they didn't use earplugs. Or for you guys that were, you know, in Afghanistan or Iraq, you know, you didn't always wear earplugs, and even those guys are suffering from tinnitus now and everything else, and it's cumulative, guys, and it will affect your quality of life later on. So I am going to use this just as reference. So the beauty of a reduced blowback system or a flow-through system is the fact that it is going to get more back pressure away from you. It's going to keep your gun cleaner longer. Now, using suppressors, it's always a love-hate relationship. I've always loved suppressors since I was really, really young. As a matter of fact, I still remember, and this is kind of personal, but I'll share it with you guys. I actually went off to college when I was 17, and I was in industrial manufacturing math as well. And in one of the lab classes, we were granted keys to be able to access the lab. And so I actually started back in those days. I was like, well, I'm going to make my own suppressor because I didn't know about laws, didn't really care about them at the time. So I started machining a piece of billet aluminum when I was going to make a suppressor out of it, but I never got that far. So at this point, I'd never made one. It was all good. However, the professor came in one evening and saw me spinning up something on the lathe, and he said, Ray, I know what that is, and if I see it again ever, you will be expelled from college. And so I kind of learned my lesson at a young age. This is why I've always pursued it. I really like suppressors, but the bad part about the non-reduced blowback suppressors, like an RC2 or a conventional suppressor, is the fact that it does throw a lot of extra gas, toxins, things in your face when you're firing it. The other downside of it is all of your rounds get completely caked up with carbon. It blows it back into the magazine, it blows it back into the action, and you have an extremely dirty firearm, which is going to require a little bit more oil and maintenance because it is putting a lot of that pressure back into the system that it wasn't designed to have. You'll also get overpressure. If it's a machine gun, you're going to notice a higher cyclic rate. You're going to get more wear and tear on your parts and components because it's literally just overgas, just beating the crap out of it. So when HuxWorks came out, and they might not have been the first, it doesn't matter, but when HuxWorks came out with the 556K, the Flow, this kind of changed everything, you know, when it was OSS, because it was a way to get a lot of that gas away from you. But at the same time, the gun ran cleaner, it run cooler, it didn't change your cyclic rate, and this was a really, really good can. I am going to have to refer to my notes here because I can't remember all these numbers, but the 556K, this thing comes in at 5.5 inches long. It's going to be 1.6 inches in diameter, and it weighs a hefty 12.3 ounces. It is a full auto rated can, and there's no barrel restrictions on it. It actually works very well. In my opinion, it's a little loud. You can't have more gas going out this way without increasing the sound signature a little bit. It's just the trade-off we all have to play, basically. Well, then you guys know about the Surefire RC2, you know, one of the most used suppressors in the world. And last year they had announced the RC3. This was 3D printed Inconel. The price point was very high on it, somewhere around $1,800. I shot it a lot, but I still used ears. Shot over 1,000 rounds of Mark 262 out of these, and they were very, very effective. Now on the Surefire, you're looking at about 6.3 inches long. It weighed in at about 17 ounces. So a little bit heavier. It is 1.5 inch diameter, and it is the RC3. So not much else to say about that. You know, guys know about the attach systems that you can use on these. Any of the Surefire fast attach, you know, whether it's going to be the War Comp or any of those work with it. Well, then you had the Cobalt. Cobalt is rather new to the suppressor scene. This was their very first model, and you know, they have a couple of different ways to attach. You can actually use just a direct thread. You can use their RCB2, which, you know, that mount system will allow you to hook things up like a cat. You can use any of the chemo mounts. So very, very versatile suppressor, 3D printed. And guys, this one in titanium, this actually comes in at 6.2 ounces. Very, very light suppressor in the titanium. It does have the Inconel, which is this one. It's going to be a little bit heavier. It's 4.75 inches long, and it comes in at about $1,300. This is a pretty effective can, but you guys will see that later on. And then new to the game, guys, this hasn't been released yet. I think this is going to be dropping at Silencer Co. sometime this week, or Silencer Shop. This is the SRBS, so basically the slim reduced blowback system 556 DM. Now this is a larger can. This one actually is 14 ounces, and it comes in, depends on if you're running hub or direct thread. So if you're just looking at the bare can, you're looking at 14.1. When you do the direct thread, you're looking at 17.1, and then you're at a pound 3 ounces when you use the hub, because this is hub compatible. This comes in at 8.11 inches long, and the diameter is 1.73. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to complain and say, well, you don't even have the Vent 3. That thing's supposed to be groundbreaking. And guys, I am not Pew Science. I did try to get my hands on one. I did talk to the folks over at PTR, but they said they're just so behind on orders right now, they couldn't get me one out for the testing. But apparently, it has been the quietest one tested so far in a 556. But also keep in mind, it's longer like this one. It is 3D printed. And does it really matter if it's 1 or 2 or 3 dBs quieter? You're still not going to be in that hearing safe level. You guys, you should not be shooting a 556 without some type of hearing protection. Guys, this is the least expensive. This one actually comes in at $950 on the B&T. I'm interested in shooting this one, and it is their dedicated 556 can. This is not a 30 cal can. So let's go ahead and get to testing. All right, so before we get started, this is going to be the Geisley, the Super Duty. And guys, remember, once again, I don't give a crap about the mil standard, the 1476D, or any of that other stuff. I don't care what's at the muzzle. I'm not going to worry about the meter, all this and everything else, the height and everything. This is going to be kind of an impromptu. And guys, the left ear is actually where you should be measuring from, because the right ear is actually shadowed by the head when you fire. Now you do have an ejection port here, but from most of the research that I've done, most shooters will start experiencing hearing loss in their left ear first if they're shooting unsuppressed. Whether that's fact or not, I don't know. It was just in my reading. So what we're going to be shooting is, in the 16-inch gun, we're going to be shooting the PMC X-Tax 556. It's not 223. We're not going to be shooting full auto or anything else, but we're going to measure it. I do have a camera here so that you can see the screen. This will actually take a little bit going back and forth, so I'll have to edit that. But just so you know, here we go. We're going to go ahead and start with the measurement. Just me talking is, you know, before we do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close the bolt one time right here. Here we go, closing the bolt. Okay, so closing the bolt, let me go ahead and stop that. And then what we're going to do is I got to be able to see the screen first. The decibels on that was 129.8 decibels. So just that alone, being that close to your head, even on the left side, if you did that all day long, you would actually suffer hearing damage from that. So let me go ahead and reset this. It's reset. Let's go ahead and start taking a sample. You guys should be able to see that. All right, so here we go. One round right here. All right, so safety is on. Let me stop that reading. If I guessed, I would say it's 150 something. 155.9. 155.9, you guys can actually see that right there. We're looking for the LAS, the Peak Max, the LA Peak Max. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop it. Let me reset it, yes. We're gonna start it again, and let's just do a second one. That was like 155.9, here we go. Trying to stand in the same spot every time. Let me pause that. 155.9 again. And guys, it's very consistent when you're measuring, when you're shooting unsuppressed. It's very, very consistent. You typically only see like a tenth or so. I did calibrate this beforehand. Let me go ahead and reset this. And it is reset. So we already have a baseline for what the bolt sounds like, and then we have a baseline for what it actually sounds like when we fire a round. You're looking at about 156 decibels, 155.9. So what I want to do is, guys, this has, you know, the Geisleys come with the Surefire adaptable mount. What we'll do is we'll shoot it with the RC2 first, a non-vented suppressor, and we'll see what it sounds like, and then we'll move on to the next one. You know, this is probably the most fielded suppressor in the world. This is a cool, cold can. None of these have been fired, and guys, this is just going to take time. Unfortunately, it does. And we are taking readings right now. Let me go ahead and just fire one round. I'm going to try to stay in the same place, so this is all fair. All right, safety is on. 137 dBs, 137. So definitely not hearing safe. That's actually so close to the 140. Now 140, 100% causes hearing damage, but 136, any exposure, any single exposure without hearing protection can cause that as well. So we're gonna stop, reset, yes, and we're gonna start sampling again. We're gonna shoot another round. And I'm getting a lot of gas in the face on this. We got 137.2. So you guys can see we're already there at that number that's causing the hearing damage. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch this out. All right, next up is the B&T, the SRBS. That recoil impulse is a lot softer, and I can tell you that without anything else, and I didn't eat a lot of gas. Safety's on. Let me go ahead and look. 145.1. So we're gonna stop. We're gonna reset. And guys, 140 has always been that standard. Reset, yes. We'll go ahead and start it. And this should be quieter. This is probably gonna be closer to 140. .7 because we got rid of that first round pop. Let me go ahead and reset, and let's do one more. running, checking, and $139.3. So it's right under that threshold of that 140, but remember guys, that's one exposure. Okay, next up is the RC3. I thought I was going to go with the Hux Works, but it already had the same mount, so why not? So once again, standing in the same place. Here we go. First round was actually pretty loud. 140 flat, but with that crack, it's still going to be at that 140 level, and it should be quieter the next time. So we're going to reset, enter, run. All right, here we go. This will probably be 138-ish. $141, so it actually didn't change at all. It actually got up by about 1 dB. So at least you guys have an idea of how loud that is. And I forgot I can't take this off. And a lot of suppressors, remember, it's all about tone. We all hear tones differently. So let me go ahead and switch this out, and I'm gonna have to switch the mount system out. We're gonna go with the Hux Works. All right, so Hux Works has their own mount system. This one is actually made by Cobalt. Remember, Cobalt makes mount systems for it. No rounds down range. Trying to do everything offhand here. Let's go ahead and start. Same spot for standing. Here we go. 141.2. So they're all about the same so far. Let me go ahead and stop. Reset, yes. Let me go ahead and start it again. We're filming. Same spot. Here we go. 136.2, so substantially quieter after that first round pop. 136.2, but still not hearing safe. One last time just to see. $137. There you go. All right, so next up is the Cobalt Kinetics, the Scrambler. It has its own mount system. There's a lot of different attachments you can do on here for a QD. This is the direct thread. And what we're gonna do is go ahead and start this one. We are sampling now, standing in the same spot. Here we go. We are at 138.7. Very effective. Let's go ahead and stop, reset. Let me go ahead and start it again. Same spot. $138.2. So very consistent. This is the Inconel model. Not that that would matter because the construction's the same. It's just full auto rated material. So very, very nice in that regard with the size of it. Because guys, think of how short this one is. Let's see here. Maybe you guys will be able to hear this on a video. We'll just go ahead and full auto on this. There's like 3 rounds left. Yeah, very controllable, not getting a lot of back pressure. All right, so that's all the cans that I had to test on the 16-inch gun, the Super Duty. Now, they all did a great job, phenomenal job of mitigating that back pressure and not changing how much gas I was getting to the face. The ejection pattern was pretty good on all of them. Didn't see anything going out here towards the camera, which would have been in that 132 o'clock position because I was standing right here, and that's almost dead 2 o'clock. And so if you've got optimal gas, you're going to be right here at the 3:34 o'clock position. As we start overgassing, it'll come up forwards. So we didn't notice any of that except for maybe the RC2, which did have a lot of extra gas. What I'm going to do next is something that, you know, you got to do it on your own accord. I'm going to take my ears out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot it on a 10.3, but on that 10.3 we're going to get a lot more noise. I have a feeling almost all the suppressors are going to go up in the dBs. We'll see, because I haven't actually done this on the decibel meter yet, but we'll do it in the same order. We'll start with the RC2, then go RC3, B&T, Hux Works, then Cobalt. Here we go. All right, so we have the standby, the Daniel Defense with the RC2 on here. Yes, I'm muzzling the camera. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, remember it's just a camera. It's not actually muzzling you. That goes back to when I started the channel. Someone said that I muzzled muzzled them, but they'll get over it. All right, so no ears. I'm shooting an RC2 on a 10.3 inch barrel, Mark 18. So we are sampling. These are all cool to the touch, by the way. All right, here we go. Okay, so right ear not so bad, left ear it kind of hurt, and we are at 155.2. So 100%, I did suffer a little bit of hearing damage because of that. I'm going to tell you something else too. I'm not going to keep shooting these. You see the results, and that's enough. I'm just going to stop it. That way I only have to do this 4 times. Remember, the more you do it, the more damage you suffer. So let me go ahead, and I'm just going to move to the RC3, and we'll do that. All right, this is definitely going to hurt me more than it hurts you. All right, so we now have the RC3, and here we go. A completely different tone. It was a much lower tone. It did not pierce the ears as badly, but it's still 154 dBs over that threshold. Let me stop, reset, yes, yes, stop. Okay, now let's switch to the B&T, the SRBS. All right, we are sampling. I'm interested in hearing how this stuff works out. I really don't know. So here we go. Okay, that actually hurt a little bit, popped pretty hard in the ear. On the left ear especially, 156.7. So the tone, while it was a deep tone, it still kind of hurt a little bit. All these are gonna hurt. In 10.3, it's just gonna hurt. It's just the way that it is. All right, so next up is the Hux Works Flow 556K. We are metering. Everything's recording. Here we go. Actually, not too bad. Somewhat pleasant because of the deeper tone. 143.6. So very, very effective, guys. I've always said this has been a very effective can, but even in that 10.3, I mean, come on, 143.6. I'll tell you what, let me stop this, reset it, so that we know that there's no anomaly or anything. What we're gonna do is shoot it again. Here we go. Yeah, very pleasant. 140.4, so, but still very, very effective. All right, next up, Cobalt Scrambler. Here we go. Very quiet, very reminiscent of the Hux Works. 142.5, so according to the scale, it actually is a little bit louder, but it's a great tone. I will say that. All right, here we go. And again, one more time. And 140.8. All right, so when I got done filming, I went to go take the can off, completely forgetting that I had shot that in full auto. So now I'm gonna have a waffle pattern Cobalt Kinetics blister on my hand. But one of the things I did want to mention to you is on the B&T, the SRBS, they have a bunch of different mounts. With that hub mounted system, you can go with a direct thread like that, or they also have this one that's gonna fit an A2 bird cage. So you've got to go with what actually suits your needs. Let's say you're an agency with a bunch of older Colt rifles and you've got the A2 bird cage. You can simply put that mount system on this, and this will actually hook up. Now, I'm not going to be able to show you me attaching it, but what I'll do is I'll show how this lines up for a, we'll say a Colt or a bird cage, or any style bird cage. Basically, you have a lock system here, and this lifts. And just think of it as a guillotine, and what it does is it actually goes down onto that A2, you tighten it, takes up the tension or the slack, and you are good to go. So that is a unique feature of having this B&T mount, because you could use it on existing guns with A2s without having to change mounts or anything like that. All right, this Cobalt's super lightweight. Let's see if we go offhand 500 yards. IPSC with this Scrambler. 2 for 2 with a big old amber dot. Let's see if we get the third one. That's 3 for 3. Up just a little bit high, over the top. The Scrambler's nice because you don't even feel any weight up there, so that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. All right, so I am controlling the light, and it is going to be dark in here. I've got the door set up, so here's the B&T. This is going to be 2 rounds with the PMC. Here we go. Next up, RC2. RC2 just as a standard. Here we go. Next up, RC3, RC3. All right, next up is the Hux Flow 556K. Here we go. All right, last up is the Cobalt Kinetics, the Scrambler. And here we go. All right, so results don't lie, right? I can't really manipulate that test anyway in favor of one or the other. What is my evaluation of all four of these reduced blowback systems? Well, first and foremost, remember you always need to wear hearing protection. It doesn't matter what you're running, how you're running it, it's just the way that it is. Now, are some quieter than others? Yes. Can some of those quiet ones hurt your ears more than other ones that read higher on the dB rating? Yes, because a lot of it's about tone. So what I've learned is when you look at these four cans here, the B&T actually had a tone that was very similar to the RC3, okay? Even though all the dB numbers were relatively close, within 2-3 dBs of all of them, these two in particular were louder, in my opinion, as far as the pitch than these two, okay? The shorter ones. However, if you noticed when we did the flash testing, these two here, actually the Hux as well, actually probably had the best flash suppression. I think the B&T had the biggest flame in the beginning, but then no flame on the second shot. The RC3 had them on both. The Hux had it on the first one, not so much on the second one, and the Cobalt had a pretty big one on the first one. And I was using the Inconel can, by the way, instead of the titanium, because we know titanium sparks quite a bit, and it would actually show up in there. But you also have to look at the price point too. So you have to look and see what that is. And that's with 55 grain. We could have been shooting Mark 262 and had completely different results. People are going to ask what kind of mount system, this, that, and the other. That was the 3-tine. They recommend the closed 3-tine for the RC3 for the best sound or the best flash suppression. The least expensive is actually going to be the B&T, the SRBS. It's a very impressive can. It works very well, especially very configurable with that hub mount on the backside, where you can use it on Surefire mounts, you can use it on an A2 birdcage, you can use it direct thread. The Surefire, of course, we know that's a tried and true system. You can never fault Surefire for their mounting systems. It's been proven all over the world. Works well, but also the most expensive in the group. So you got $950, you got about $1,750 or so. Then you've got these two coming in around that $1,200-ish mark, $1,200, $1,300, depending on the material and whatnot. Both of these are very impressive cans, talking about the Hux 556K as well as the Cobalt. The Cobalt surprised me the most because it is the shortest, the smallest, and so for close quarters application, having something this short on a 10-3, I do like it. Also in the titanium, this is super light, but I think the Inconel will be better for full auto choice. Like I said, it's up to you, but either way, they're all effective in regards to mitigating that gas to you as the end user and having a cleaner, better functioning firearm. What's my favorite? I don't know, they're all my favorites because I own them. If I had to pick one, I'm probably, man, I tell you what, it's really tough. If I was going just on sound alone, it's going to have to be one of these two, with I think the Cobalt having a more pleasant sound. If it's going to be for flash suppression, it's probably going to be the B&T or the Hux. As far as size, it's going to be the Cobalt. So I think if we were doing this on a scale, the Cobalt Scrambler is probably going to win. And in the tie, man, that is super lightweight. You wouldn't even notice it on the back of your firearm. But like I said, you choose what works best for you. Just remember, you need to always wear hearing protection. Hopefully you guys learned a little something in watching the video. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you on the next one. Have a good one.